So very nice to have everybody here with us. Today is a very special day. Every day is special if you happen to be here in the temple, right? Anyhow, it's a special, really special day today. The day we celebrate the appearance of the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Ramchandra. And so today, after we chat just a little bit, we'll be doing some reading from a book that's highly recommended by the authorities. Now all you have to do is find out who the authorities are. This is called the Ramayan, and it's a very condensed version of a very, very long epic of India called, it's the Ramayan. It tells the story about the advent or the coming to this planet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Ram, and his activities. This book is generally available in our gift shop just next door, and I don't know what the cost is. Does anybody? Anyhow, it's less than $50. It's a bargain nowadays. Very interesting book. This has been written, or it's been translated, condensed by our devotee, Krishna Dharma Prabhu. And I think you listen to the wording, you'll find it very modern English, so it's easy for those of us who are familiar with English to understand. I was just reading at my home another version of the Ramayan, which was written sometime earlier, and it comes in 3 volumes that are about this size, so it's considerably longer. But it's also written in it's in an earlier style of English, more like what we consider to be biblical, coming from, the kind of language that was used in the Bible. So it comes from maybe the late 1900s or sometime during that period. Anyhow, this is an easily read version. It's relatively short, but it also has some of the major experiences of the people of that time period. Oh, I should introduce myself also. I'm Rupanuga Das. I'm a disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The person who is my initiating spiritual master is the one whose picture is next to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, who departed from this planet in the year 2002 because of an automobile accident in India. He was traveling from our international headquarters in Mayapur back to Kolkata, and the car ran off the road, struck a tree, and he gave up his body at that time along with one of his disciples. May I ask, how many of you are here for the very first time? Can I see your hands? Come on, hold them up. Okay, very nice. Thank you very much for coming. This we call Radha Kalachandji, Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji Dham. This is one of the temples of Krishna and Radha, located in North America, one of many temples. If you have not seen what is behind the curtains yet, I invite you to wait around until the curtains do open, and I think they will be opening at 6 o'clock. I think that is our usual schedule. I would like someone to be my timekeeper. You have a watch. Would you please let me know when it gets to be about 10 minutes till 6? Okay? So we'll know to begin shutting. And what time is it now? Is it about 20 after? Okay. So today we're going to read a little bit from the book entitled the Ramayan. There have been many versions, many translations. This particular one has been fairly recently translated, and it's, let's see here. 2000, second printing in 2000, third printing 2001. Actually, copyrighted 1983. Well, let's see. Now, those are the paintings and such that are inside the book. Copyright 2000. So I think we can say this book is probably, this is the copyright date, 2000, the year 2000. So it's fairly recent. So it's modern English, relatively easy for us to read. There was a pious king by the name of King Dasarath who had a number of wives, but he had no male offspring to whom he could pass on his kingdom. So he arranged to have a great big sacrifice done. And when we say sacrifice, we're not talking about like human sacrifice, anything like that. This is a sacrifice meant to receive some benediction from the demigods. Demigods are those living entities within our universe who live on higher planets, who are of the same nature as we, their spirit soul. They just, because of their previous past lives of pious activity, they have received the benediction that they can now go and live in a place where lifespans are much longer. And they're also given the opportunity and the powers to control certain aspects of this material universe in which we live. And thus we call them demigods. They are subordinate. Just as we are subordinate, they are also subordinate. There is a supreme God, the supreme personality of whom is called Krishna. So on our altar behind the curtains, we have a deity form of that Supreme Lord and his feminine female counterpart. So the two of them together are taken to be one person. But in order to have loving exchanges, they eternally separate themselves into two personalities. So the feminine side of Krishna is known as Radharani. She appears as a beautiful young lady in the spiritual world. And when Krishna decides to come to this planet, he brings not only Radharani with him, but he brings all of his, many of his eternal associates who take their births in different pious families on this planet. And so Lord Ramchandra is also an incarnation of Krishna. He is to be considered non-different from Krishna. He has appeared millions of years ago. Now, some of you who tend to believe in Darwinism might question this. You might think that the earth is only a few billion years old and human beings first appeared on the planet as cavemen around 30,000 years ago. But according to the Vedic scriptures, of which this is one, the human society has existed on the planet for millions and millions and millions of years. We just haven't been able to get our scientists to accept that because they haven't found enough bones yet to prove or disprove. Okay? Anyhow, so when King Dasarath was on the planet and performed this great sacrifice in order to have some offspring, he was awarded a pot of nectar, which he himself was to take a little bit of and give some to his queens. And in doing so, they were able to give birth to some significant progeny, of whom this personality known as Ramchandra was the elder. And then his younger brother was Lakshman. Then he had two other brothers. What were their names? Pardon? Bharat and Shatrughna. Yeah, so the four brothers. And they were all very, very pious young men. As a matter of fact, it's said that just as Ramchandra is an incarnation of Vishnu, so Bharat, Lakshman, Shatrughna are incarnations of what? Balaram. Actually, they're considered to be, according to what we have here, they're considered to be incarnations of the weapons of Lord Vishnu. Amazing, huh? In the spiritual world, even weapons have personality. In the spiritual world, it's said that everything has personality, has consciousness. And that's one of the signs, that's one of the proofs that the soul exists because of its symptoms. One of the symptoms of the soul, the presence of the soul, is consciousness. Whenever the body is no longer conscious, then we say that the body is dead, that the soul is no longer in the body. So in the spiritual world, everything, even the rocks, the trees, the birds, the insects, everything has consciousness in the spiritual world. And so the weapons of Lord Vishnu have appeared as the three brothers of Lord Sri Ram. King Dasarath, being a king, had to fight many battles. And during one of the battles, he was almost mortally wounded. And one of his queens, whose name was Kaikeyi, took him from the battlefield. I think we have a sign from above. Okay, anybody who has phone, please shut it off during this time period. Okay? Or turn it on vibrate, and if you get a call, leave the temple to talk. Would that be okay? It's known as etiquette. Okay? So King Dasarath was saved on this battlefield and during this engagement by his wife, and he was so indebted to her that he promised her 3 boons. I believe it was 3 boons? 2 boons. And so she, instead of accepting this, in other words, he says, whatever you ask of me, I will give you up to half my kingdom, or something like that. So Kaikeyi said, well, if it's all right with you, I'll just hold off on accepting it. I'll take a rain check on those boons. So Kaikeyi then has held on to these boons. So Ram gets to be a young man, gets to be up to the age at which he is to be the president-elect. Or he's the, what is the correct term? He's the next in line to become the king, and Dasarath is Prince Regent, I think it's called. So Dasarath has made the announcement that he's ready to give formal recognition to Ram as the king of the entire planet. Dasarath is a very powerful king. Now, with our present communications and transportation systems, it's a little hard for us to understand how millions of years ago there could be a king of the entire planet, and that they could get messages all over the planet without any difficulty. They could travel to any part of the planet they wanted. But that's the way it was. And people lived a lot longer at that time, too, so they had time to do all these things. So Dasarath has made an arrangement for a big celebration to give Ram the official title of Prince Regent. I don't think he's not going to receive coronation as king, but in other words, it's like he's being recognized as the person who will become king. But now, one of the queens of Dasarath, the same one who saved him from the battlefield, has a maidservant whose name is Manthara. Manthara is like the chief maidservant to the queen, Kaikeyi. And Kaikeyi's son is Bharat, who is the second son, and he has very much subordinated himself to Ram. He's very, very affectionate. They have a very loving, affectionate relationship. But Manthara decides that if Ram is to become the king, then Bharat, who is the son of Kaikeyi, not Kaushalya, who is the mother of Ram, but Bharat, if he does not become king, then he's going to be just left out, and therefore Queen Kaikeyi will be practically forgotten, and I, who am her maidservant, what's going to be my position? And so she has a crooked body. I think she's hunchbacked. And she also has a very crooked mind. Well, having a crooked body is no problem as far as spiritual life is concerned. But when one has a crooked mind, that is considered to be an extreme detriment to spiritual life. So Manthara is concerned about her physical well-being. And she somehow or other convinces Kaikeyi to take advantage of one of those boons that has been promised to her by Dasarath many years before out on the battlefield. And so she convinces Kaikeyi to go to her husband Dasarath and tell the king that she wants 2 boons now. The first one is that Bharat will be crowned king. And the second boon that she asks is that Ram be banished to the forest for 14 years. Now Dasarath is so affectionate to Ramchandra, and he's also very affectionate to his queens. He's always treated Kaikeyi in a very loving way, practically on an equal level with the other queens. So he is devastated. He cannot imagine life without Ram. So he tries by so many arguments to get Kaikeyi to please take back what you have asked of me. I cannot bear to be without Ram. I will give up my life if I cannot have Ram present. He said, even let Bharat become king. That's okay. But let Ram remain here. Why send him off to the forest? He will never cause any problems. He's a very loving brother to Bharat. He would be very happy to have his brother become the king. So that's where we pick up now. Dasarath is in a state of great distress. But he has made his promise, and Kaikeyi is very adamant. She's like stone. She cannot be moved by his tears, his pleading. He's yelling at her, telling what a wicked woman she is. And still, she is very impassioned. She is stone-like. She just remains there and says, you made your promise. How will you be considered to be a king if you don't keep your promise? So we're going to read a little bit now. This is the chapter 7 in the book. Well, maybe I should pick up on the last few paragraphs of the previous chapter. This chapter 7 is called Ram Agrees to Depart. But let's go back to about 3 or 4 paragraphs at the end of the last chapter. And at any time, folks, if you get the feeling a little bit uncomfortable, if you get a little tired or something, please feel free just to get up and walk out into the hallway for a while. If you have children who are a little restless, it's all right to take them out. Because I have 5 children of my own, and of course they're all big now, but I can remember they used to have difficult times sitting for very long. So feel free at any time to come and go from the temple room. So we begin. The king spoke fiercely, O perverted woman, here and now do I disown your own hand, which I formerly clasped in the presence of the sacred fire and with the utterance of holy mantras. Now the night has passed, and soon the people will joyfully urge me to install Rama. However, as at your insistence I shall delay this day, surely I breathe my last. Rama should be made to offer the last rites to my departed soul. O woman of evil conduct, you should make no offerings to me, for I fully reject you today. Kaikeyi fumed. What use were these empty words? Her husband had already rejected her when he favored Kaushalya. That was the mother of Ram. She addressed the king in piercing words. Why do you say such scathing and hurtful things, O monarch? I merely ask that you give me what you have already promised. Summon now your son Ram and give up this needless agonizing. Do your duty and stand fast to virtue. Like a first-class horse lashed with a whip, Dasarath controlled his mind and righteously responded to Kaikeyi's words. Bound with the strong cords of morality, I am helpless. My judgment fails me, and in this evil hour I seek the refuge of Ram. Bring my gentle son before me. The king fainted away, exhausted with grief and his futile efforts to change his wife's mind. Then we begin chapter 7. Towards the end of the night, Vashishta, I think he was the guru to King Dasarath, accompanied by many disciples, hastily entered Ayodhya, the town the city in which they lived. From his hermitage outside the city, he went along the well-swept and watered streets, all thronging with citizens, eagerly awaiting Rama's installation. Crossing the outer courtyard of the king's palace, which was decorated all over with rows of flags, he approached Dasarath's inner chambers. The rishis saw the courtyard crowded with large numbers of brahmanas reciting sacred hymns from the Vedas. Upon reaching the palace gate, he was met by Sumantra, who prostrated himself before the sage and then immediately left to inform Dasarath of his arrival. As he passed through the palace and approached the inner chambers, Sumantra was entirely ignorant of his master's present plight. He composed in his mind pleasing prayers with which to greet the king, who was dearer to him than his own father. The guards informed Sumantra that the king was in Kaikeyi's chambers, and as he arrived at her door, he began to loudly recite those prayers. even as the sun which sustains all beings arouses the world. O arise now, O emperor, like the sun shining from the eastern hills. As Matali, the minister of Indra, extolled his master, who then rose up and conquered the demons, so do I now extol you to rise up and do your duty, O Lord. All of us await you with joined palms. The glorious sage Vashishta has arrived with other sages and stands ready to perform this sacred installation ceremony of Ram. Order us now to proceed, O mighty monarch. Hearing Sumantra speaking at the door, Dasarath became overwhelmed with sorrow once more. He went to his charioteer, that's Sumantra, his charioteer, and embraced him. The king looked at Sumantra with eyes reddened with grief. Today, O Sumantra, your well-chosen words only pierced my heart with pain. Dasarath's happiness had ended. He could not say anything more and simply stood, with tears flowing down his face. Sumantra was unable to fathom the cause of the king's sadness. He stepped back with tightly joined palms. This was strange. Surely this was the happiest day of Dasarath's life. For so long he had desired a successor. At last his desire was about to be fulfilled. Seeing the mystified Sumantra, Kaikeyi said, "The king has remained awake the entire night considering Ram's installation. Sleeplessness has made him unwell. He wishes to see his son. Therefore bring Rama here." The intelligent minister looked at Dasarath. Something was surely wrong. On such a momentous occasion, why was the king not himself going to fetch Rama? Dasarath saw his minister's confusion. Reassuring him, the king told him to fetch Rama. Sumantra considered then that his master might just be exhausted from the preparations for the installation. Saying, "It shall be done," he bowed low and left for Ram's palace. Meanwhile, the priests were making ready all the items required for the ceremony. Around a beautifully carved and adorned wooden seat were arranged many gold pitchers filled with water from all the sacred rivers ready to anoint Ram. Above the seat was a large white umbrella which shone like the full moon on a clear night. Excellent musicians played melodies appropriate to the mood while brahmanas chanted Vedic texts meant to invoke good fortune. The brilliant sun rose in a clear sky, and everyone eagerly awaited the arrival of the king and his son. Sumantra reached Ram's palace, which was as splendid as Mount Kailash, the abode of whom? Lord Shiva. Secured with oak doors 50 feet tall and embellished with hundreds of balconies, its main facade was adorned with gold images studded with innumerable gems. The outer gateway was constructed of coral worked with gold and embedded with large precious stones of every description. As Sumantra passed through that gateway, he was greeted by delightful music and the aroma of various incenses. Peacocks and cranes crowded the courtyard, which was graced with blossoming trees and bushes. Sumantra descended from his chariot and entered the palace, which was in no way inferior to the palace of Kubera, the god of wealth, the treasurer of the demigods, the god of riches. Enlivened by simply seeing that palace, Sumantra passed through 3 entrances, each guarded by powerful young warriors wielding spears and bows. Ram was as dear to him as his own life, and his heart pounded with joy as he approached the inner chambers. The corridors through the palace were cool and delightful, decorated with fine wood carvings and lit by the luster of thousands of celestial gems. Arriving at the gate to Ram's personal quarters, Sumantra asked the doorkeepers there to inform Ram of his arrival. Rama, who was alone with Sita, immediately instructed that Sumantra be shown into his room. Sumantra went before Ram, whom he found seated upon a gold couch, being fanned gently with a whisk by Sita. Richly adorned with costly ornaments and smeared with crimson sandal paste, Ram seemed to shine like the midday sun. He smiled affectionately at Sumantra, who fell prostrate on the ground offering prayers. Rising up with folded hands, the minister said, "Most blessed is Kaushalya for having had you as her son. Your father, along with Queen Kaikeyi, now desires to see you. Please, be pleased to go there without delay." Rama looked at Sita and said, Surely my father is speaking with his queen about my installation. I think the blessed Kaikeyi, always favorable to my father, must even now be urging the king to make haste with the ceremony, knowing as she does how much the emperor longs for its completion. As he has sent his most trusted messenger to fetch me, the king, along with his most beloved queen, undoubtedly wish to bless me that my installation will proceed without impediment." Ram rose to leave, and the dark-eyed and lovely Sita invoked divine blessings upon him. Following her husband to the gate, she said, "After installing you as Prince Regent, the king should in course of time consecrate you as the ruler of this world, even as Brahma installed Indra as the ruler of the gods. I wish to serve you in that state. May the great deities Indra, Jamaraj, Varuna, and Kuber, the guardians of the four quarters, guard you from every side." Along with Sumantra, Rama went out from his palace quarters as a mighty mountain lion might emerge from his cave. Ram saw Lakshman standing at the first gate, bent low with joined palms. At the middle gate, Rama met his friends and relations, and he greeted them all according to their stations, offering obeisances or embracing them. Within the courtyard, Ram mounted upon a golden chariot which shone like fire and was covered over with white tiger skins and had thousands of small golden bells hanging from its sides. The charioteer spurred on the tall steeds, which were as powerful as young elephants, and the chariot moved away swiftly with a deep rumbling. As the outer gate swung open, Ram's chariot came out from the palace like the moon emerging from behind a cloud. Ram went along the main road, preceded by a platoon of mailed warriors, wearing swords and carrying bows. The prince sat peacefully while Lakshman fanned him. He smiled at the people who thronged the streets in the thousands. His chariot was followed by great elephants resembling moving mountains. Thousands of horsemen brought up the rear. Poets and singers chanted Ram's praises to the accompaniment of divine music echoing in the heavens. Mixed with these sounds were the shouts of the warriors, which resembled the roaring of lions. On the balconies and at the windows of the mansions lining the roads stood women who showered Ram on all sides with flowers. The ladies also praised Sita, saying, "Surely that godly lady has performed the highest penances to have been blessed with this great hero Ram as her husband." The citizens, seeing Ram pass by, uttered blessings. "May victory attend you," they cried out. Others were heard to say, "Here goes Ram, who will today inherit the royal fortune. Fortunate, too, are we who will soon be ruled by him." You don't hear that too often nowadays, do you? Fortunate are we who will soon be ruled by him. Being extolled everywhere, Ram rode down the highways, which was lined with white houses appearing like clouds, and with shops filled with abundant produce of every variety. The streets were strewn with jewels and with grains of rice and blades of sacred kusha grass. Brahmins made offerings of ghee lamps and incense to Ram as he passed, invoking divine blessings and saying, "We would renounce every worldly happiness simply to see Ram coming out of the palace as Prince Regent today. Indeed, if even liberation itself would not be so desirable." None could turn away their eyes or mind from Ram as he went along the road in Ayodhya. Everyone looking upon Ram also felt that he was glancing at them. Gradually, Ram and his entourage arrived at Dasarath's palace. Ram passed through the 3 outer gates on his chariot and then got down and passed through the last 2 gates on foot. He politely sent back all those persons who had followed him, even though they found it difficult to part from him. At last, Ram reached the inner chambers alone and approached Kaikeyi's room. As he entered the rooms, Ram saw the afflicted king seated with Kaikeyi on a golden couch. He bowed at his father's feet and then laid himself low before Kaikeyi, his mind fully composed. Dasarath appeared dejected and distressed, his face streaked with tears. He sat burning with agony and repeatedly sighing, appearing like the eclipsed sun or like a holy Brahmin who has told a lie. Seeing his son standing before him with a modest demeanor and folded palms, the monarch only said, "Ram," and could not say another word, being overcome by grief. Ram was seized with apprehension to see his father in that unusual state. Like the ocean at the rising of the full moon, Rama became agitated. He was devoted to the king and was saddened to see him so sorrowful. How was it that on such a day his father did not greet him? Even when angry, he would always rise to bless his son. Why was he now remaining seated, looking downwards and weeping silently? Ram went before Kaikeyi, who sat at a distance from the king, and addressed her alone. "O godly lady, pray tell me the reason for my father's distress," Ram said gently. "Even though always affectionate to me, why does he not greet me today? Have I unwittingly committed some offense? Is the king angry with me for having failed in some way to respect him?" Kaikeyi remained silent, and Ram continued, "I hope no suffering caused by illness or mental anguish has afflicted my father. Truly it is said that everlasting happiness cannot be had in this world. I hope I have not offended anyone dear to the king. If I were unable to please my father, or if I failed to do his bidding and thus angered him, I would not survive even for an hour. What wretched man would not devotedly serve his father, a veritable god to him on earth, to whom he owes his own birth in this world?" Understanding from Kaikeyi's taut expression that there was tension between her and his father, Ram said, "Perhaps my father has been hurt by some utterance of yours, O fair-faced queen, made out of vanity or anger. My dear Kaikeyi, please inform me of the cause of this unprecedented disturbance to the emperor, for I am very curious." Upon hearing this question from the high-minded Rama, Kaikeyi, who had become impudent and was thinking only of her own business, replied boldly, "The emperor is neither angry nor anguished, O Ram. However, there is something on his mind which he will not disclose for fear of hurting you, his beloved son. Having made a promise to me, the king now repents and wishes to retract his word, just like any other common man. The ever-truthful monarch wants to build a dam across the stream whose waters have already flowed away. Truth is the root of piety. This is known to the righteous. O Rama, take care lest the king loses now his piety for your sake, angry as he is with me." Looking into Rama's apprehensive eyes, Kaikeyi said, "If you will undertake to do whatever the king may ask, be it good or bad for you, then I shall explain everything. I shall speak out the king's promise only as long as it shall not fail because of you, but the king himself will not in any event tell you." Rama was distressed to hear Kaikeyi speaking in this way. Within the hearing of the emperor, he replied to her, "Alas, how shameful it is that I should hear words expressing doubt about my devotion to my father. You should never think this, O glorious lady. At my father's command, I would this very moment leap into blazing fire, swallow a deadly poison, or plunge into the depths of the ocean. Therefore, tell me, my dear mother, what is on your mind? By my avowed word, I shall without doubt do whatever is desired by the king. Know that Rama's word is always truth." Seeing the king mute and guileless, Rama prepared to carry out her desire. Kaikeyi felt that her purposes were all but accomplished. In an unkind voice, she revealed her wicked intentions to Rama. "It is well known how I once saved the king's life, and how as a result he granted me a couple of boons. Against those boons, I solicited today a promise from the king to fulfill my desire. I wish for Bharat to be installed in your place and for you to go to the forest, remaining there for 14 years. O descendant of emperors, prove true to your word and to that of your father. Indeed, rescue the king from the ignominy of impiety and leave without delay. Let Bharat be duly consecrated with all the paraphernalia arranged for you. While he remains here to rule this wide and prosperous earth, you shall remain for 14 years in some distant forest, wearing matted locks and the barks of trees." The king cried out in pain as Kaikeyi spoke. Ram stood by without showing any emotion as the queen continued. "Overcome by compassion for you, this monarch cannot even look at your face. O Ram, ornament of your line, make good his promise and deliver him from his difficult and awkward situation." Even though Kaikeyi uttered such cruel words, Rama did not yield to grief. The king, however, felt increasing agony as he thought about his impending separation from Rama. He listened in silence as Rama replied to Kaikeyi, "So be it." To honor my father's promise, I shall put on the dress of an ascetic and depart forthwith for the forest. You need entertain no doubt in this regard, O queen. Why, though, does my father not greet me as before? I could never transgress his order, even as the ocean, by the order of the Supreme Lord, can never transgress its shores. Now, it's significant at this point in this conversation that Rama has just been told that he will have to give up his position as king, as emperor of the entire earth. And they'll have to go to the forest and live with his hair matted and wearing clothes made of tree bark. And what's his reaction to this? That's okay, but why doesn't my father greet me as before? So he was more concerned about his father's not greeting him than he was the fact that he was losing the entire kingdom. This is the quality of a godly person. This is the quality of God. This is Ram. Ram looked across at his father, who could not return his glance. The king kept his head down and wept softly. Ram turned back to Kaikeyi. Ordered by you, O Kaikeyi, I would joyfully part with in favor of Bharat not only the kingdom, but also all of my own personal property, my wedded wife Sita, and even my own beloved self. How much more gladly would I part with these things when ordered by my father, the emperor himself, in order to please you and honor his pledge. Please assure my afflicted father, for seeing him sitting there shedding tears pains me greatly. He may feel assured that I shall immediately enact his desire without feeling any sorrow at all. Let swift horses be sent for Bharat. Bharat was away in a distant kingdom. Tinto? Okay, thank you. Without questioning my father's command, I shall now quickly proceed to the forest. So I think at this point we will stop reading, and we'll just make a few comments. Ram has been trained in all of the duties of a king. He is very wise, very intelligent. He's loved by all the people in the kingdom. He has so much to gain from this impending coronation by his father, Dasarath. But more important than even this coronation to be king by his father is his father's affection. And Ram cannot understand how Dasarath is withholding his affection, even after hearing the words of Kaikeyi, the cutting, piercing words of Kaikeyi, wishing him to give up the kingdom, not only to give up the kingdom, but simply to go to the forest and live for 14 years. And one of the points that is made was, one of the statements made by Dasarath is that Ram has never had to walk anywhere. Or if he's had to walk anywhere, he's always had, a nice, soft, smooth surface to walk on. He's always had the finest of everything in his life. A wonderful palace of his own. The beautiful Sita is his wife. Everything that he could wish for. And just like that, in the snap of a finger, he's willing to give up everything just to attend to the will of his father. So these literatures that are coming from India, this is the Ramayan, then there's also the Mahabharata. They teach us how human beings live. And this is the kind of knowledge that we need today in this age of Kali Yuga. Because in this age, all piety is lost. Those of you who have young children, please be aware that if they simply associate with others in this mundane Western society, you will lose whatever culture you have brought with you from your homes, from your home places, in one generation. Unless you make a very dedicated and determined effort to keep this culture alive here in this place we call America, which is full of opportunity, there is no possibility that this Vedic tradition will be carried on. And without this Vedic tradition, the entire world will go to ruin. We see evidences of that now, do we not? No piety, even among the so-called kingly class of people. They're simply interested in their own comfort. So, should we be discouraged by that? Not really. Because there's one thing that is more powerful than the influence of this Mahamaya, this great Maya, this energy of the Lord, which is now crushing everybody who is on the planet. There's one thing more powerful than that, more powerful than the material energy of the Lord, and that is the Lord himself. So therefore, we offer so much praise to those persons who bring this philosophy, this religious understanding, to the Western worlds, of whom the foremost in this age is the person whose form is seated now on the big seat, the Vyasasana, up here. Now you can understand why persons like myself, who have this kind of skin, this kind of hair, this kind of eye color, have taken to the greatest treasure that India has to offer. The British went in and they conquered, and they took away the gold and the jewels. But there was one thing that they failed to take because they were not prepared spiritually to take it, and that was the spiritual wisdom that India has to offer. So that is in the Ramayan, in the Mahabharata, and then more importantly even, books like the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you have not made these books a part of your family library, ladies and gentlemen, do so. Otherwise, within one generation, all that is important can be lost. We've seen that in our own society. I was brought up in a very rural society in Mississippi. And at the time that I was a young boy, there was still some farming going on. That was in the 1940s, 1950s. But within my generation, all of those skills have been lost. Because the only farming now that is being done in large acreage, using very large equipment, costing millions of dollars to get set up and do. And everything is still dependent on the weather, which is controlled by the gods, the demigods, who are subordinate to the Supreme Lord. You call him Lord Rama, call him Lord Krishna. They're the same personality. So I encourage everybody, make it a point in this lifetime, in addition to coming here, working hard, striving to make money, so that you can take something home to your country, wherever you came from, or to keep it here in this country, to make this the place where you're going to spend the rest of your lives. Do something for your spiritual life as well. Because if we're simply concentrating on making money, money is important, no doubt about it, right? Everybody goes to college to make money. But if that's the only purpose in life, that will end at the time this body ends. When this body ends, all of your efforts are finished. So, here is the injunction that is given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshantite jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. Means simply seek out a spiritual master. Render service to him. Inquire from him submissively. The great souls can give you enlightenment because they have seen the truth. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will end our class for today. Thank you very much for your kind attention, for listening to the pastimes of the great Sri Ram. Sri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki.